Welcome to Canadian Times. This week in the news, Prime Minister Trudeau is attempting to codify absurdity that Islamic terrorism has nothing to do with Islam. Yes, as the Western world moves away from this politically correct, nonsensical position, Canada is digging in. Remember that in recent elections in the UK and in the United States of America, people woke up because they were tired of ignoring the elephant in the room, the fact that radical Islam is the greatest threat to peace in the world. Of course, no reasonable person believes that Muslims are a threat. All Muslims are a threat, but no reasonable person would state that Islamic terrorists are not Islamic. But that is what Canada is now trying to codify. Also, Canada has already hate speech laws protecting everyone, including Muslims. So we don't need Prime Minister Trudeau's new initiative. In fact, back in November, he had one of his MPs introduce motion 103 along with a petition E411. An Islamic member of Parliament, Iqra Khalid, has put together a thinly veiled motion to require the government to pass laws to make it illegal to criticize Islam. Sure, she includes a blanket statement to condemn Islamophobia and all forms of systemic racism and religious discrimination, but the fact is that Islam is the only faith that is mentioned. Ms. Khalid's one-sided motion goes on to take note of how the House of Commons petition E411 and the issues raised by it, and request that the Standing Committee of Canadian Heritage undertake a study on how government could develop a whole-of-government approach to reducing or eliminating systemic racism and religious discrimination, including Islamophobia. The thin veil is to put other religions here under the veil of religion and racism. Remember, Islam's not a race, it's a religion. But they don't mention any other religions because that's not the focus of this initiative. The focus is this petition. And the petition was introduced simultaneously with the motion. And not only is the motion unfair, it is factually wrong. The petition upon which the government must act states, recently, an infinitesimally small number of extremist individuals have conducted terrorist activities while claiming to speak for the religion of Islam. Now, of course, this is absurd because it's really saying that only this tiny number of Muslims adhere to radical Islam. But if you look at the polls, if you look at what Al Jazeera conducted as an Arabic poll, the result was, and I quote, overwhelming support for the Islamic State terrorist group, with 81% yes, saying yes on whether they approved of ISIS's conquests in the region. 81%. Numerous other polls show widespread support for Islamic terrorists across the Muslim world. After 9/11, Osama bin Laden became the second most popular name for newborns in the UK. A recent French poll indicates that ISIS has approval rating in France of 16% of the population, when there's only 11% of the population are Muslims. That would indicate almost 100% of the Muslims support ISIS. So this motion that she is putting forward is nonsensical. But it's nonsensical in that it orders the government to act upon these words and attempt to eradicate the explicit connection between Islamic terrorism and Islam. Yes, but almost all the Middle East, the Muslim countries, have some anti-blasphemy laws with penalties ranging from prison to death. And now Prime Minister Trudeau wants to implement similar laws in Canada. Yes, similar laws. This motion repeatedly calls for actions to stop Islamophobia without a limited definition of what Islamophobia is. And if you look at the Oxford Dictionary, you find that the definition is dislike of Islam, or prejudice against Islam or Muslims, or dislike of Islam as a political force. So if you use the dictionary definition, you could wind yourself in prison. Why? Because we already have laws, hate crime laws, sections 318, 319, and 320 of the Criminal Code. And if you dislike Islam or Sharia law, you can face one of these hate crime charges, and you can face up to 2 years in prison should all this go through. Well, God help us. It appears that all parties will support Trudeau's plan, and that there will be no opposition from the new Conservative Party, which is best described as liberal light under Rona Ambrose. I urge you to sign the petition at canadiantimes.ca. Call Justin Trudeau at 613-995-0253. Call Rona Ambrose at 613-996-9778 and fight for freedom, for fear that we will lose it if we don't take action.